I'd like to welcome Associate Professor Sarah Bauermeister, who's a cognitive neuropsychologist and epidemiologist, and she works in the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Oxford in the UK. So she is a senior scientist for Dementias Platform UK, which is a cohort data repository for over 60 cohorts and have more than 3.5 million participants. And DPUK has strongly supported the development of Dementias Platform Australia, led by us here at CHIBA. And Sarah also collaborates with CHIBA on the Cosmic Consortium. So, as well as being an accomplished academic researcher on her own research projects, Sarah leads the programs for DPUK Data Curation, for scientific review of the DPUK Data Portal, and the Early Career Researcher Training and Mentoring Program at DPUK. Sarah is currently visiting Australia, staying somewhere quite remote in outback Western Australia. She's increased the population size of the town by 0.5%, and we're very fortunate to have this opportunity for a double feature from Sarah today. And if you haven't already registered for the second seminar on data curation and ontology, which starts at 3 o'clock, please use the link in the chat to register for that talk on Eventbrite. But for the first talk, the title of Sarah's seminar is the DPUK Data Portal, Democratising Data Access and Facilitating Multi-Cohort Science. Over to you, Sarah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And it's really nice to see all of you and only be only a couple of hours away rather than an entire day. So I'm just going to share my screen. Please just say if I start talking, you definitely can't see what I'm sharing. Okay.
Slides are looking good.
Yeah. Okay, great. So thank you for that introduction, Viveka. I won't say anything more about me. But I've worked for DPUK for the last 8 years. I've helped build it along with the team in Oxford and Swansea University, but also as a scientist, I use it. So what I'm presenting here today is both from a infrastructure point of view and a facility for data sharing, but also from a scientific point of view as well. So, who are we? Viveka's already said who we are, and we're really hoping that by repurposing cohorts which have been collected for many other reasons, some are cardiovascular disease, some are Huntington's, Parkinson's, and we can repurpose these and provide access to researchers across the world for only an internet access. So they just need an internet and an industry and an academic email address. So this is free. And for many researchers, especially those in low middle income countries, this is providing access to data sets which traditionally are only set aside for elite institutions, or if you have a nice big pot of funding. So that's our mission, and it's to obviously help towards finding new treatments, new cures for dementia. So we're not just a data portal. We are a public-private partnership funded by the Medical Research Council, industry, charity, and philanthropic partnerships. We focus on 3 key areas. So we have the data portal, which is the topic of the presentation today, but we also have built over the years a trials delivery framework, creating a register of people. Over 10,000 have registered on there. We run 6 monthly assessments and really providing a registry for research studies to assess either treatments or other interventions, which hopefully we are contributing towards dementia treatment discoveries. We also have an experimental medicine incubator. This is primarily the wet lab work, the biological mechanism work. And together with the trials delivery framework, if you look at the figure on the left, we really feel that the 3 strong areas intersect to progress on hypothesis generation, new treatments, risk stratification, and also precision recruitment into clinical trials. So in addition to being a data portal, we also work with other collaborations and hubs. So for example, those hubs that are using our infrastructure, instead of developing their own infrastructure, we have the traumatic brain injury group who are funded by MRC, 11 million at the beginning of this year, the motor neuron disease community, also funded by MRC end of last year. The COVID Global Mental Health Consortium, funded by NIH, for which I'm a PI, and a tissue discovery platform. So instead of building our own infrastructures as hubs, we are just tapping into the resources that have already been built by DPUK. Additionally, we work with other platforms such as the COSMIC Consortium, the Korea Dementia Research Centre, the Korea Brain Research Institute, ADDI, the EPND from Europe, DPAU, as Viveka said, and also the International Health Cohorts Consortium. And together with these other platforms, we are fostering a collaborative, interoperable environment for researchers, promoting remote mentoring programs, data curation shared across the platforms, federated analyses so that you don't have to move data anymore. You can simply run your code in multiple platforms. And also, especially with our Korean colleagues, wet lab, dry lab projects, which bring together both arms of research in a complementary way. These are our partners, both industry, academic, and philanthropic, and without whom we could not exist as DPUK. So this is the data portal. If you go along, you can see that it's we like to think a one-stop shop where you can discover, access, and analyze data all on one page, and you can find out about the different components of DPUK, of the data portal this time. So this is our cohort matrix, and this is a snapshot overview of our cohorts, which we have now over 65 cohorts. And these are, as the data comes in, we divide it into the top level of our data model. The next talk will cover that. And we are able to show presence and absence of data within these 18 categories across our cohorts. So this is the first port of call for researchers. They come here, they look, for example, at BDR, they see, oh yes, there's data in sociodemographics. Then they move on to the cohort directory. They look up that cohort, such as BDR or ELSA UK. They're able to click into it, find out more about ELSA, but also importantly, they can find out longitudinal information about those data points. So for example, they can see that mood in a subcategory of our data model has been measured by the CSD, and it's been collected at multiple time points. So this all informs the application process for researchers going forward to apply for data for their own research. We also have a genomics matrix. You'll see a lot of crosses. However, there are around 23 of our cohorts who do have genomic data. That's about to rise to 25 later this week, actually. And here, people interested in genomics can have a snapshot view at what type of genomic data are available for them to apply for through DPUK. Likewise, for imaging, we do the same. More of our cohorts have imaging, although it says 19, my slides are out of date. You can see what type of imaging data are available for researchers, whether it's fMRI, MRI, or MEG, or even PET. We also have a biosample matrix, which, although we don't hold the samples, we do point researchers in the right direction in order to apply for samples. So we provide them with a list of our cohorts who do have samples for request and how they might access this and whether there's any charges involved. Another tool that we have is the Cohort Explorer. This is a feasibility tool. We're busy developing this, and this is very much out of date, but we harmonized 30 variables for data visualization and feasibility assessment. So in other words, these 30 variables, researchers can compare and contrast across cohorts to see which of the cohorts would be available and the power of the study. This is particularly useful for grant and fellowship applications, and also if they're looking at a specific population. So for example, if they really would like people with MCI and memory complaints who are female, they can put this in, they can see which cohorts would be available and what the total number of participants would be provided in different data sets across these cohorts. As I said, we're developing this. This is now 40 variables for harmonization, and we've actually worked across 15 cohorts for these 40 variables, and we're expanding this work across the ADDI workbench. So watch this space for this to be developed and enhanced. A little bit about us. We have over 1,147 users across the world. And so that's 44 countries and equating to access of over 63 of our 65 data sets. And this is phenomenal if we think about LMIC countries who cannot afford these data sets or even the software to analyze these type of data sets. A question I always get asked is, how do you apply for it? I haven't included a lot of information about that, but I'm happy to answer questions in the Q&A about application, who gets accepted, who doesn't get accepted. So basically you apply online, that application comes into Swansea University, who hold our data on their servers. That comes through to Oxford for a scientific review, and then it goes out to our data owners who decide whether to give researchers access. DPUK never own the data, and we don't make the final decision about researchers. We simply screen for what we call egregious science and applications which should not be going out to our data owners. So how do you access the data? We run our data platform through VMware, and when a researcher applies for the data, we will give them the size of a desktop to suit their analyses. So we give them a username, they make up a password, they have an authentication code, for example, on their phone. I use Google Authenticate. And as you see down the bottom, there are many different sizes of desktops, and researchers will be given one of these in order to suit the analyses. And this is basically the desktop, and I'm going to try and do some magic here, stop sharing and share the real live desktop. Let's see if I can get it right. Okay, are we back seeing the green, the grey?
Yes, that looks
Yes.
good, Sarah. Thank you.
Okay, I'm hoping this is the real life one and not the picture on my PowerPoint. But okay, so now I've logged into the data portal. I logged in before this call started, just simply to make it a little bit easier for myself. And as you can see, it looks exactly the same as if you're working on a laptop or a desktop. We rolled this out across our researchers around 7 years ago, and we don't allow them to work on data sets on hard drives or their PCs. This is the only place we allow scientific research to be undertaken. If we click into collaborations, we can see these are actually all my projects. I know I have too many, but basically you'll see the list of projects which you are involved in, either as a PI or a co-I, and you simply click into those, and these are all the data sets that I work with. This program is on early adversity, and I work with researchers across the world, and they can all access this space. They have their own private user folder as well. And just to show you that the main question that we're always asked is, oh, but it's virtual. Is it going to be a bit slower? And can you see my black status scripts now?
We can, yes.
Okay, so this is just an example. The benefit of working on the data portal is, of course, that if you've got a group of 8 to 10 researchers and you've got one doing the coding, one doing something else, it's very, very collaborative because you share the code in that one single space. So here is some code, and this is run in Stata because that's where I use. I'm a bit old-fashioned. But I mean, I've just run through my code and run my structural equation model, and I challenge anyone to tell me that that was slower than having it on your desktop or your laptop. So it really is suited to big data analytics, and we will give a desktop to suit the type of analytics that people want to do. Now, the other question that people ask is, what about multimodal analytics? Well, as you would have seen in the beginning, we do have a Ubuntu, and we have FSL, we have SPM, we have Python, MATLAB, Jupyter Notebooks. We have everything that you can possibly use for multimodal analyses, and you don't have to think, well, you can't work on the desktop if you do multimodal. So all you would do is switch to Ubuntu. The same folder structure is shared across all the desktops. So you would simply run your imaging analyses, you would save it, you would come back to this desktop. So it's almost like a layered approach. We have a files in out here, and this is the way that you would take off any figures or figures, graphs, metadata for publication purposes. I'm probably going to I tell you what, I'm not going to go into it because I really don't want to crash my poor laptop. But basically, that the files in out function is where you would take out any output you need for publication. There is no connection with the internet. It is a closed environment, and data are not able to be downloaded. So that's the DPUK desktop. I'm going to go back to my presentation now. And hopefully, yes, I am moving on. So we ask people not to take photos of data, well, you can't remove it, but we also ask them, please don't take photos of data. I didn't show you data now. All I showed you was code and output. But you are able to take out your figures, metadata, and code. We have a paper if anyone's interested in looking at more. So with the last 10 minutes, just a little bit about the research that is conducted on the DPUK Data Portal. Blossom is a program of work I've established in 2018 with a small award actually through DPUK. And all our data, all our analyses, all our collaboration has only ever been conducted on the data portal. For those of you not familiar with the field, early adversity is associated with deleterious later life outcomes such as violence, substance abuse, depression, lower life satisfaction, and importantly for us, dementia and cognitive decline. So we work very closely on the basis of this excellent paper in 2020 by Ionides, probably pronounced incorrectly, where we as a program are looking at environmental influences, cognition, brain function, brain structure, neuroendocrine, also polygenic risk scores. So this is a real multimodal program of work that uses DPUK. In fact, it has helped develop the DPUK multimodal pipelines. These are some of the data sets that we use and that we still want to apply for, including the mass data set. But as you can see, we are able to use data sets from across the world. Both DPUK, we're able to bring in data sets as well. And how do we bring together all these multiple cohorts? Do we pool the data? Do we harmonize the data? Well, with data the size that we work with, the benefit of harmonizing is very, very small. So what we tend to do is we validate findings in one population cohort and compare it to another. Here we have 3 cohorts, the UK Biobank, ELSA UK, MRC NSHD, which is a 1946 birth cohort. And you can see below that the questions asked about early adversity across these different cohorts are very different. However, we are able to analyze these by taking a validation approach. One way we can do this by forming latent constructs. Here we've done early adversity in UK Biobank, and we're able to use indicators or questions on physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, and deprivation. And the outcomes that we're looking at is biomedical health, mental health, cognition, and also lifestyle. And we're able to do it, and we find there is a negative effect. This is a cross-sectional study of UK Biobank. Then we replicated it in ELSA, but because the questions are very different, we have to construct our model differently. And this is a whole new way of working with data and big data sets and multiple data sets. You learn to work around the differences and nuances in the different data sets. But again, we found a negative impact on later life cognition and mental health. This is a longitudinal study. You would have seen me run this model in the data portal now. And here we're trying to look at some sort of mechanistic pathways, causality, by taking a construct within early adversity. Here we're looking at rejection, forming our latent construct, and looking at the long-term impact on cognition and depression across. So these people were born in 1946. They reported early adversity in 1989. And again, we've got their repeat measures in 1999, 2009, and 2015. And this really has been built on the previous work that I referred to. Dr. Ruby Sang, who was actually from UNSW, came and joined us a few years ago, and she was a postdoc in DPUK. And she again looked at childhood socioeconomic deprivation and later life cognitive trajectories. And this time she used 3 cohorts, again, Whitehall 2, but she brought in 2 cohorts. So that's the HRS study from the United States, and CARME, which is American Japanese ethnicity from the USA. And again, the measures were incredibly different. It would have been impossible to harmonize such diverse data sets. But what she found was that people with early, sorry, the dog barking, early life poor socioeconomic status were more likely to be in a lower class of trajectory, cognitive trajectory over time. And this was equivalent across all 3 of these data sets with very different populations. People always ask, but what about those 2 in the middle? Well, I think as those cognitive psychologists out there will know that verbal fluency has an increase over the lifespan before it turns down, and unfortunately age-related cognitive decline takes over and takes it back down again. This paper, if anyone is interested, is published. I've only got a few more minutes to go through a couple more. This is other work by one of my postdocs who won a fellowship to work in the Blossom program on DPUK, a Marie Curie fellowship. And she doesn't have to stay in Oxford anymore. So she works from Romania because she can. And because DPUK is able to facilitate that type of relationship across the world. And here she looked at perceived maternal control, and this is abusive control during childhood, predicting the size of the dorsal striatum and reported well-being in older adults. Again, the questions were very different. This time they were extracted from the parental bonding instrument, and she was building on our former work using DPUK. She had a total population in the neuroimaging study of 468, with after extractions and deletions, which equated to 400 participants, which is still a very good sample size for an imaging study. On the data portal, using FSL tools and the Ubuntu desktop, she pre-processed the raw imaging data from DICOM files through to extract out the metrics for her analyses. And you can see here that what she found was increased maternal control / abuse was associated with lower well-being, and also cortical atrophy in both the caudate nucleus and the putamen regions. And for those of you who are not familiar with these regions, these are implicated in the reward circuitry of the brain. So everyone asks us, what about AI, ML? What are you doing? Do you facilitate that? Well, the answer is yes. If you want to do machine learning or network models or AI models, that's perfectly fine. We'll just give you a desktop. If you're going to run large language models or NLP models, there may be a charge for storage, processing power, and a GPU. But those are all discussed with an applicant at the time of application. But I think that I always like to give my little pitch that AI is not just the only future now. To work with these big data sets and to run validation work where you start with one method, you use another method, and then you approach it with a complementary approach to methodology. And this is exactly what we do here. Some of our models, one of my postdocs now is applying machine learning to some of our previous work. There, I think almost 30 minutes. So that was definitely a whistle-stop tour of DPUK and a little bit about the capability of what you can do in DPUK. It's not just us trying to big it up. It is totally possible. And it is starting to look favorable when you apply for grants and fellowships and funding to say that you are tapping into these multiple resources in a secure environment. It does look good on grant applications.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. That was terrific. So we figured, Roy and I, that some of our Chiba colleagues may be interested in how DPAU is similar or different to DPUK. So we've just got a handful of slides to show you. And then after that, we'll take questions for Sarah. So just bear with me while I try and share my screen. Okay, so can you see my slides in presentation mode? Nope. I don't think that worked. Roy, can you see it in presentation mode or not?
It's
No.
the slides, not presentation mode.
Yeah, okay, let me just try again. Is that, no, not up yet. Hang on, is that better?
Still black? Okay, yeah, better now. Working.
Okay, great. All right, so just, we won't take too much of your time, but we kind of just thought we'd sort of give a bit of the context of DPAU. And yes, so Dementias Platform Australia really is an initiative of the Cosmic Consortia, which is a cohort studies of memory in international consortium led by Paminda, which has been running for quite some time now. And the aim of the consortia is to harmonize data from international cohort studies of cognitive aging. And COSMIC itself has 56 at the moment population-based longitudinal studies involved across 38 countries, across 6 continents, and with only 186,000 participants. But still, that's not to be sneezed at. And as you can see on the map, there's a focus on countries outside of sort of the Caucasian regions of the world. And as part of the NIH funding we Paminda received for this, we got a supplementary grant to establish Dementias Platform Australia with the aim to having a secure environment for cosmic studies to or cosmic projects to analyze the study data. I was going to say something else. Yes, our aim at the moment is then we are onboarding the cosmic studies. Of course, it's voluntary, but we're trying to encourage them and convince them that this would be a good thing to do. And we're hopeful if our contract signing office will play ball with us that we might have 10 cosmic studies onboarded onto DPAU by the end of 2024. And I might just note that if a study is not actually hosting its data on the platform, there's definitely an opportunity to import that data to combine it with other study data on the platform. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight with my Chiba hat on is that at the moment you can apply for data from the Memory and Aging Study MASS and the Sydney Centenarian Study on DPAU. And we are working towards also onboarding the data from the Old Australian Twins study in the next quarter or so. And the aim is actually from the Chiba Research Bank's perspective to make things a little bit more efficient and to make the application for Chiba cohort data solely through DPAU Data Portal by the end of 24. So we, like DPUK, have a data portal where you can identify relevant studies, you can apply for access to the study data, and you can analyze the data in a secure analysis environment. Our capability is currently restricted to two-dimensional data, so basically spreadsheets. We are seeking support to expand to be able to curate, catalog, and share more complex imaging and omics data in a secure analysis environment. But at the moment, we don't really have the capacity or the capability or the funding to do that. So it's on our wish list. And then I'm going to hand over to Rory, who's just going to highlight the work she's been doing on the Data Explorer, because ours look a little bit different to the one that DPUK uses.
Hi, everyone. So our Data Explorer was obviously inspired by the DPUK Cohort Explorer. We have some other features because RShiny provides more flexibility compared to Power BI. So I have created a demo app using simulated data because we don't want to have the sensitive data openly accessed. The demo app is open sourced. The publication is in progress. In brief, the app contains five tabs: an overview and metadata for high-level comparison, including the metrics Sarah demonstrated earlier, and filter tabs so the researcher can identify data points from participants and studies that matches certain criteria. And the visualization tab is organized by domains generated use simulated filtered results, and a preliminary analysis tab that allows user to do a brief analysis with the variable of their choice. So the app aims to provide improve the fair of research data, so findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reusability. Future projects from this is an R package for easier deployment for other data platforms and potentially a cross-platform study discovery tools. So researchers can identify aging-related studies that, for instance, can be applied through DPAU, DPUK, or ADDI in the future. The next page is just a screenshot, but if you'd like to know more, more than happy to have a chat. Thank you.
All right, I got to find my button for on sharing. Here we go. Great. Thank you, Rory. So now time for questions and comments from the audience. And it might be nice if you go to live, put your camera on. So Sarah can see that there are actually people behind the black squares. Does anyone have any questions for Sarah?
Maybe I can start. Yep. Yeah. Sarah, thank you so much. And of course, we are missing you. You were supposed to be here, but we don't have you here. But of course, it's second best option to have you online. I actually wanted to ask you about imaging and genetics data. How do you manage for example, starting with imaging data, how do you manage your imaging data? What software do you use? Where is this data housed? And how does that integrate with your flat file data? You're on mute. Yeah.
That's actually in the next talk where
Okay. Yeah.
I go into more detail about the genomic and imaging pipelines that we're trying
Okay.
to get.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Now we come to that.
So this might be a good time for me to just reiterate that we have a second talk by Sarah starting at 3 o'clock. And if you haven't registered and you want to know more about data curation, please use the Eventbrite link that's in the chat. You can still get a ticket, not too late. Any other questions out there? Russell.
Hi. 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 Thank you, Sarah and Vivica and Rory for your presentations. I wanted to ask about uh, the harmonization of data across multiple data sets, including outside of the environment, especially since I think some of this analysis, a lot of this analysis is done within the DPUK environment, right? So if hypothetically we would like to take some of that data and combine it with other data sets that we have, like in-house or from other collaborators or whatnot, that are not within the environment, is there any sort of like solution or suggestion as to how about we might go about doing that?
Yes, so I mean, it's both a strength and limitation that you can't take out the data from the data portal.
Mm.
However, we are undertaking, for example, a harmonization program for for my COVID Global Mental Health Consortium. And we're both using DPUK for data, but we're also harmonizing data across 30 different data sets, and only a handful are DPUK. And we still need a secure environment to do that, a shared environment to do that work. So how we're achieving this is that we are developing the code within DPUK, the harmonization protocol. We have a select number of variables, and then that code is being shared across our different consortium members. They're running it, and the aim is that we will then combine it within a shared environment. So we'll use DPUK. So it's really a federated approach. And we're testing it through that program of work, and it's underway at the moment. I'd be very happy to share our findings and what works and what doesn't work.
Ah, cool. That sounds great. Thank you.
Good question, Russell. Any other? Matt? Lennon?
Yeah, just thank you so much, Sarah, for the wonderful presentation. It's awesome work that you guys are doing over there in the UK. My question was around timelines. So from when you apply for the DPUK data or the various data sets contained within the DPUK, what's the normal lead time between applying for the data and getting the data that you need that you can work on?
So we always quote a median time of around 23 days, 22 days. So we've got some of our cohorts who will reply within 2 days, and you can get your project up and running with just the one cohort. So if you've applied for 5 cohorts and you've got a quick cohort, we don't keep you waiting. And then we've got other cohorts who, usually due to lack of resources, not because they're being difficult, they only have a DAC meeting every 3 months. And then obviously that you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. But on the whole, it's around 3 weeks.
It's a little fast.
So, Sarah, can you just clarify that you don't require the applicant to sign a data, sorry, you don't require the applicant's institution to sign a data access agreement? Is that right?
We do, but it's only one. So the benefit with DPUK is, I mean, a lot of you and myself, we've all tried to apply for data sets, and you've got different data access agreements and timelines and contracts, and it's a minefield. But when the researcher comes to DPUK, it is only one data access agreement. And they take that, and all their cohorts are listed, plus their project. And as soon as one of those cohorts have approved, they take it to their contracts department, they get it signed off, and that will cover all the cohorts. So there's no individual going out to those cohorts, because this is a data access agreement which has been drawn up with each of our cohorts and approved.
Okay. Thank you. Sadly, UNSW is a little slow on that front at the moment. I wouldn't count on the 23 days, Matt. Sorry. Just at the moment. Hopefully they get back up to speed. Any other questions from our audience? Yes, Wei.
Hello. Yes, my question. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
My name is Wei Wen, and my question is very similar to Russell's. And you see, Russell was talking about the harmonization of the data, but also you see, to me, I think DPUK at the moment is like closed shop. If I want to combine other cohorts with DPUK, it's not just limited to the harmonization of the data, but also I want to analyze the data actually. And it involves, because I can't, I have to get agreement from the other studies to import the data to DPUK to be analyzed. So my question is this: that how do you resolve this kind of questions basically? And also, what are the data formats or data type that you can allow people to export to their own machine? Thanks.
Okay, so as I showed you with our Blossom program, we do exactly as you said. We apply for other data sets, and in that application, we state, could we please upload this onto the secure environment and analyze it alongside DPUK cohorts? And to this day, I've never had a data owner reject my request. We have a UK Biobank, we bring that in. That is analyzed alongside our cohorts. We've got, for us, it's not been a problem because they understand the secure environment. And if they don't, we can set up a conversation. And that data set, and we always make sure that in our application, we are very clear that the data is only seen by that group and will be removed. It doesn't just become a DPUK cohort. And on the whole, that is actually quite clearly understood. Another way around this is what we're developing at the moment is the federation pipelines. And so we're actually, we're going to be developing the federation pipelines through my COVID project with Harvard and Brazil. But we would very much welcome another proof of concept project who would like to do that with us as we develop the pipeline. And if this is something that you'd be interested in, please do send me an email as we work out the most efficient. We don't want it to be, oh, DPUK thinks this is efficient when everyone else is said, well, it's simply not. So the more people we work with to develop this federation so that just the code moves. The code moves, you run it, but you just have your own shared environment. And I think that's the way forward, especially with European data owners. It's exceptionally difficult for data to leave the mainland Europe. Oh, and you said data types. Coming into DPUK, I'll answer both of those. We accept absolutely any data types, and we format it, we curate it, we produce the standardized data set and the CSV. So we take everything from SPSS to we don't take paper, but we're hoping that those days are gone. And as for taking out, we have a scrutiny team who make sure that the code, especially AI code, is not removing data and no identifiable participants due to small cells. It's the normal protocol that we undertake for scrutiny.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm glad you got onto the federated analysis. Definitely, I know that Rory and Ash at our end are trying to come up with a project that we could do across DPAU and DPUK. And yeah, it would be interesting to maybe also do something around imaging for sure. Any other questions?
Can I ask Sarah, in relation to the desktops that you allocate and capacity for computation for multiple users, really? I was trying to look at, say, DPAU and the infrastructure that we have on the SERP. Does the SERP offer that, or is it something else that you need? to be able to provide that computational capacity?
So we have an agreement with SERP, the SERP environment. We have, as part of our core funding, we have given them a pot of funding that will fund the different size desktops. And so, for example, a standard desktop will run multiple regression. You know, you're not going to have a problem. But as soon as you get into AI work and latent construct modeling, then, you know, you've got your large desktop, which is 32 gigabytes as opposed to 8. And then the extra large desktops, which are 128 gigabytes with 16 CPUs. And they do come at a cost. So generally what we do is as a project comes in, we will give them an extra large desktop, but we won't give them 5. If they want an extra one, it's £1,500, for example, because we have to give that back to Swansea to increase the hardware that is driving those desktops. So that is, I don't know if that answers your question, but that is generally, so we've now just amended our application form that it actually asks you what hardware do you want, what software do you want, so that we can be very clear up front that whether you're going to have to pay in for your compute power.
Sure. And can I also ask you, in terms of cost recovery, is it their usage? How many is it per hour, or is it just one lump sum for the desktop?
Yes, it's just one lump sum. So, for example, my NIH project, I costed 12,000 in my budget for 8 extra large desktops, and those will be for the life of the project. But if we want to use GPUs, that is when it comes at an analysis or a timing cost.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, we may have time for a quick cup of tea or something before coming back at 3 o'clock for the next seminar by Sarah, where we will actually be joined by quite a number of researchers external to Chiba who have a great interest in how to do this data curation, etc., etc. So, but if you haven't registered yet and you want to join, the link's in the chat. And thank you so much, Sarah. That was really, really good. And I hope it helps with the enthusiasm at this end for DPAU and for, getting our own studies onboarded and the Cosmic Consortia as well. So thank you so much.
Okay. See you later.
See you soon.